Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to Lesson 7 for Volume 2 USM Gurbani study on the Mool Mantra and the first 5 Pauris of Japji Sahib. So today we're going over the words Ajuni and then Sebhang. We're going to go through both of the words, and then I'm also going to pay special attention to the extra Bani on page 47 of the workbook, and the activity actually focuses around that extra Bani, that Shabad. So I'm going to go over that Shabad in order to set up your discussion that'll happen after this video. So first of all, the word Ajuni, there are two main points you need to remember about Ajuni. The first one is, again, referring to the idea that God is beyond the cycle of birth and death, right? Similar to Akal that we went over last time. So number one, Ajuni, God is beyond the cycle of birth and death. And number two, there is no source behind his existence. There's no external or any internal influence on him. So he is completely independent. No one can force God to do anything, right? No one can make God do something. He's in complete control of what he's doing. And there's no source that's supporting him. He's self-supported. So again, the first point being God is beyond the cycle of birth and death. And the second point being that there is no source behind his existence, no external or internal influence on him. Now, obviously, as we talked about in the last year's curriculum and even in this year's a little bit, those that are closer to him, those beings that fall in love with God, you can call them sants, Mahapuraks, just connected souls in general, those that are close to him, obviously when they do ardas, when they ask for something, they're most likely going to get what they're asking for because they have a strong and special relationship with their Creator. But again, it's not a guarantee. No one has force or control over God, but those that are closer to him obviously have more favor. So that's Ajuni. Now we're going to switch focus to Swebhang. So if we take the word Swebhang here, the first part refers to being on its own. So the word Sve here refers to on its own, and then Bhang refers to someone who has spiritual knowledge inside. So the first part is basically doing everything on its own. So God here, again, similar to Ajuni, God is acting and influencing and doing everything on its own. There's no source behind it. And then the second part of the word refers to the idea that God has that spiritual knowledge, everything already inside of him. He doesn't have any external source where he's getting this information, this power, this ability from. Everything is built inside. And putting it more simply in English, Swebhang refers to the idea that God is self-created consciousness and light. So everything that he's doing, his light, his power, his consciousness, how he's acting, he's an active participant. When we talked about the word murat a few weeks ago, that everything is self-created. So he is self-created consciousness and light. And many authors, when talking about these words, especially Swebhang, refer to the Shabad that's on page 47. And this is one of my favorite Shabads in Gurbani. I find it extremely optimistic and inspiring, and just, it's just such a beautiful Shabad, and I'm very excited to share this with all of you, to go over it with all of you, and I'm hoping that you guys will also find it as uplifting as I do. So the Shabad is written by Guru Amar Das Ji, the third Guru in Rag Asa. This makes a lot of sense because the Shabad, if you look at the words, you look at the meanings, it's a very uplifting and optimistic message. And Rag Asa is a very optimistic Rag. So Rag Asa, literally As means hope. So Rag Asa refers to the idea that when someone listens to this Shabad, reads this Shabad, you're listening to it in Rag Asa, you're going to get uplifted. And let's go through the words right now, through the lines, and you'll understand more, what I mean by being uplifted by this Shabad. So, Man tu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan. So here, Man tu jot sarup hai. Here, Guru Sahib is talking to us, to the reader. Excuse me, he's talking to our mind. So talking to our mind, you are the embodiment of God. Mantu Jot Sarup hai, and as a result, because you have God within you, you're an embodiment of Him. Recognize your origin, recognize where you come from. So a lot of times we go through our day forgetting that we have God within us. We stress, we have so much anxiety and worries, and we go through all of these negative emotions, and we forget the fact that, we originate from Him because His Spirit is within us. His light is within us. So Guru Sahib reminds us here that, hey, recognize your origin. Apna mool pachan. Recognize where you come from. You come from Him, the highest of the high. Man har ji tera naal hai. Gurmati rang maan. So again, talking about that God is with you. Man har ji tera naal hai. Tere naal hai. God is with you because He's inside of you. If we recognize where we come from, our divine origin, we recognize that God is within us, that we are a part of Him, we are His creation, that as a result, He's always with us. So based on the fact that He's with us, if we recognize that through the Guru's teachings, Gurmati, then we enjoy and we feel His love. So all those negative emotions, stress, anxiety, anger, greed, lust, whatever it may be, they all go away because we enjoy His love. Once we look at Gurbani, understand Gurbani, and we live Gurbani, suddenly this Spirit of God that we have within us, we start to feel that. We feel God's love. And as a result, all those negative emotions go away. Mool pachane, ta so jane, maran jivan ki so ji hoy. So Guru Sahib again is saying that if you understand where you come from, if you understand that you are from a divine source, you have God within you, and then you recognize your husband God, recognize that He created you, then you understand how death and birth work. You understand the cycle of birth and death. You understand how to escape the cycle of birth and death. Gur prasadi eko jane ta duja bhav na hoy. So as a result, with Gurmati, understanding Gurbani, understanding His principles, living His principles, after that, by achieving His grace, His nadar, then you will not be attracted to anything else. You won't be obsessed with collecting material wealth. You won't be obsessed with, all I want is power. All I want is for people to like me. All of these other sort of temporary pleasures that we're looking for, they no longer affect us. We don't love anyone else but God once we reach this stage, once we reach an understanding that we are divinely created, that we have God within us. Man sant ai vaji vadai ta hoa parvan. And then as a result, peace comes to mind, right? Shant. And then gladness resounds. Basically, all that negative energy that you had is completely gone once you recognize your origin. Then the last line, Eo kahe nanak mantu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan. And it's interesting that here again, mantu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan, it's the same as the first line. So this is rare. It's happened in many shabads that, the first line and the last line of the shabad are the same, or partially the same, but it's rare to see this. So this is an example where here the first line is almost the same as the second, which emphasizes how important this concept is that Guru Amar Das Ji is trying to teach us. So here Nanak says, again, Mantu Jot Sarup hai apna mool pachan, you are that embodiment. You are the image of God because God is within you. But the problem is that we don't recognize that. We forget. We do things, we act and think in an ungodly way. And as a result, we forget that we are part of Him. So this Shabad to me, and again, it's in Asa, it makes sense that it's so optimistic, is that we have the potential, right? We have that divine potential to reach God because God is within us. He's inside of us. So we have this opportunity. It's possible. God is already planted inside. But the problem is that we've clouded that. We've put so much mal, so much filth, moral filth, filled with lust, anger, greed, attachment. Everything that we're not supposed to do, we do. Everything we're not supposed to think about, we think about. And as a result, that divine origin that we have within us disappears. We don't feel it anymore. It becomes less and less bright. So Guru Sahib says here, no, remember that you have this inside of you. Clean it out and make that light brighter. And if you do, you see in this Shabad all the benefits that will come to you. And eventually you will merge with him and escape the cycle of birth and death. And there's a Sakhi, one of my favorite Sakhis with Bhagat Kabirji that I think really demonstrates what this Shabad is talking about. And I'm going to just spend a couple minutes talking about it. Basically, there was a visitor that came to Bhagat Kabirji's house and wanted to talk to him, but he had never seen his face before. And when he knocked on the door, Bhagat Kabirji's wife answered it and opened the door, and this traveler said, I want to speak to Bhagat Kabirji, and his wife said, he's not here right now. Recently in our village, someone passed away, so there's a cremation happening. So he's actually at the cremation grounds with a lot of other people from the village. So if you want to go talk to him, you'll find him there. But this person said, that's fine, but I've never seen your husband. I don't know what he looks like. So how will I recognize him? And Bhagat Kabirji's wife said, you'll recognize him because he has a halo around his head. And just like in Western tradition, even in South Asian religious traditions as well, the idea of a halo, of a glow around someone's face who's enlightened, who's in love with God, we have that concept too. So here, Bhagat Kabirji's wife is saying you'll recognize him because he's divinely enlightened. He has a halo around his head. He has a glow because he's one with God. So when you go there, look for the person that has this shining, this halo, and you'll know that it's him. And the traveler said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to go to the cremation grounds and I'm going to go find him. So what happens is this traveler goes to the cremation grounds and he sees that the cremation is still happening. So he kind of waits on the side and he just glances at the entire crowd. And what he notices is that everyone has halos around their heads. Everyone seems to be very connected to God at that very moment. And he doesn't know who to talk to because everyone has halos. So how can he figure out which one is Bhagat Kabirji? So he just sits back and he waits for the cremation to end and he waits for people to come back down and then he'll figure out what to do. And what he notices is as people start walking down from the cremation grounds is that when before everyone had halos around their head, suddenly one by one the halos start disappearing. That glow that people had while the cremation was happening starts to disappear. And eventually there's only one person who has a halo around his head, and that's Bhagat Kabirji. And the message of this Sakhi is that when we are in situations such as a cremation or something very powerful, very in a way spiritual, because a lot of times when you go to a cremation or to a funeral or to any sort of event that's around death, people become very spiritual. And I've heard people say, oh, you know what, this has really shown me that life is temporary. And I'm going to become very, very spiritual. I'm going to become very religious. I'm going to change my life. And everyone during that moment when the body is being burned is in a very spiritual state. And they, in a sense, become connected to God in that very moment because they're thinking about Him. They want to change their life in accordance to His values. In that moment, that spirit inside suddenly comes out because we actually pull it out. For so long we were focused on material things and other people and ourselves that this light got ignored. But suddenly during the cremation, everyone becomes so spiritual because it's such a powerful scene to see someone literally leave this world. So people at that time, that what the traveler saw was that everyone became a Bhagat. Everyone became so spiritually enlightened. But as the cremation ended, people began going back to their old ways. Just like after a cremation here, or after an ardas, or any kirtan surrounding someone passing away, at first everyone's very spiritual, very deep. But then, when langar comes and people leave and go home, life goes back, right? Conversations turn to, how's work going? How's school going? how's so-and-so doing, talking about sports or anything like that. And suddenly all of that spiritualness that we felt before, that spirituality, disappears. So this Sakhi shows us that all of us have that halo inside of us. This Shabad shows us that too, that we have that divine potential. But the problem is that we ignore it 99.9% of the time. We ignore it. Bhagat Kabir Ji, however, and the Gurus and every other Bhagat in the Guru Granth Sahib, they did not ignore it. They recognized it and they maintained it 24 hours a day, which is why they reached the highest stage of enlightenment. So this Shabad and the Sakhi, and here the words in the Mool Mantra, give enormous optimism to all of us that are reading and understanding Japji Sahib, that are just trying in general to become closer to God, that hey, we do have that potential. We do have the chance to get closer to Him. God is within us. He's inside of us. It's just our focus. What do we focus on? Do we focus on things that are not going to pull that light out? Or are we going to focus on spirituality? Are we going to focus on Sikhi? Are we going to focus on Gurbani and Kirtan and meditation and Seva and really make that light brighter? That's up to all of you to decide how you want to spend your time. Whether to cultivate that light and get that halo, or whether to be like most people in that Sakhi and sort of, maybe the halo comes up once in a while, but for the majority of time it's not there. And because this Shabad is so beautiful, and again, I just think it's such an uplifting Shabad. We have a recording of it as well, a very short one, just for a few minutes, by one of the most famous Kirtaniye of the 20th century, Bibi Jaswant Kaur, who learned from Rababis, a very old traditional style of singing, of course in Rag as well. And this recording is in Rag Malkons. So enjoy Rag Malkons as well, and again, just try to feel the Shabad and connect with it as well. And with that, I will see you next week. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.